Editing is really quite simple. It's drag and drop. We can take this file and drag it down, and you'll notice that it goes into the timeline. I can put it anywhere here in the timeline. I can start at the beginning, I can start at the middle. For now, it's not that important because we can always move it once we're done with it. You'll notice that there are also a number of video tracks. There's video 1, video 2, and video 3. I'm going to get started on video 1. That's a pretty good place to get started. And when I drop it in, this message comes up. This message says, hey, the format of the file that you just put into the timeline doesn't match the settings that you selected for this project. Do you want me to help you out and I'll adjust the settings over to match your project? Normally, I would say yes, particularly if all of my media is coming from one source. Everything's coming from the same camera. That means that the folks at Adobe are going to help me out to make certain that I've got the proper settings to match the video files that I'm using. For today, I'm going to say no because I've got the settings chosen based upon a whole variety of media that we'll be using today. I'll drop it in and you'll see that we've now got a representation of this video file in the timeline, and it's just a little tiny thing in the timeline. I can zoom into the timeline by using the slider up here, which is a representation of big to small. I can also use the plus keys and the minus keys on my keyboard to zoom in and zoom out. So I'd like to zoom in enough so that I can fairly clearly see this clip. You'll see that there's a representation of the audio in a waveform. I can make that larger so that I can see it more easily. And let's just play this clip.
Sorry. This past summer, my husband and my 4 teenage children took a family vacation back east. We spent some time in New York City. We did the Freedom Trail in Boston, and then
Say that again.
We did the Freedom Trail in Boston. And then the highlight of the trip was Nantucket, where we spent some time relaxing on the beach.
So a fairly innocuous soundbite, but you'll notice there's a stumble in the middle. And there's also some junk on the beginning and on the end of this clip. I'd like to clean it up so that she just clearly says what her point is, that we get her to the core of her point. If we listen to this, she's got a place where there might be an edit.
We did the Freedom Trail in...
Now, you might be wondering, how am I navigating around? This is nonlinear, and it allows me to play forward and backwards by dragging with the mouse. I can also use keys to play forward and backwards. For most applications, the J, the K, and the L keys will allow you to play your sequence forward and backwards. And so I'll often leave my hand, my left hand, resting on the keyboard to be able to control the video. By playing the L key,
the Freedom Trail in...
it plays forward. By pressing the K,
Boston.
There's the K, it pauses it. And by pressing the J key, it plays it backwards. This allows me to rock and find things without frantically searching for play icons and stop icons and all of those sorts of things, which can really slow you down. Certainly in the application, those icons are here. You'll notice this is play.
Trail in Boston.
This allows me to step back 1 frame at a time, forward 1 frame at a time, go to the beginning, and play fast.
Freedom Trail in Boston.
But I can accomplish all of those things with just keeping my hand on the keyboard, and that way I'm not flailing around with the mouse trying to find the buttons. For most beginning editors, that's the biggest problem. They're constantly looking, trying to find the mice to stop things and move things and control things. By using the J, K, and L keys in these applications, you can easily manage the process of where you are. The other thing that's fun with it is I can, by tapping the L key, it plays faster, faster, and faster. So you can get through, eventually with that sort of thing, you can get through an interview really quickly because you'll be able to understand it at 2 times or 3 times speed, and you can find what you're looking for much quicker. So I'd like to get rid of this content at the beginning where she's staring at the sky.
This past summer,
I'd like to get rid of that. I'd like to get rid of the stumble in the middle.
and then
And then at the end,
we spent some time relaxing on the beach.
there's all that empty stuff at the end. So I'm going to approach this in two different ways. I'm going to trim the ends just so you can see how that works. Now, this red line is referred to as the playhead. And the nice thing about the playhead is it can be like a doorstop. It can, when you are trying to adjust things, you can use it as a way to tell the software, move something to here, move the cursor to here, trim to here, move the clip to here. It's called snapping, and it allows you to have very precise control over where you're trimming things. So I can take this playhead and say, I want to get rid of all the stuff at the beginning. I can cut it off, or I can trim. You'll notice that in this application, when I move the cursor to the beginning of this clip, the icon changes. It changes to this red, and by grabbing it, it gets rid of the beginning. It doesn't slip it.
This past summer,
literally gets rid of, it trims off all that stuff at the beginning of the file. By moving to the end,
on the beach.
You'll notice I've got the playhead here, and I grab the other end, and I slide it back, and it snaps. It kind of sticks right to where the playhead is. And I have a very accurate way of finding the beginning and the end of a clip. Now, I want to kind of get rid of the stumble in the middle. So I want to listen to where there might be a good edit point.
Sometime in New York City, we did the Freedom Trail in Boston, and then we did the Freedom.
So there's an edit point there where she says we did twice. She says it once and stumbles, and then starts again with that same sentence. So that's a natural point, is to make the edits right before each of those we dids. So I can find,
we did the Freedom City.
Now, if I want to get in really closely, one frame at a time, I can use the cursor, the arrow keys, and forward, backward. Gives you nice, fine control over where your edit is. Now, I want to go in and, in essence, take like a pair of scissors or razor blades and just add an edit into this part of the timeline. There are a number of ways to accomplish this task. One is to use this icon up here. You'll notice the tooltip comes up saying to split the clip, to turn it into two clips, or Control K. Either will work. I'll select this icon, and this longer clip will become two clips. You'll notice that it's now in two pieces. I've broken it into two, right up to where she says,
Time in New York City.
And then I've chopped it out, and I made the edit to the section that I don't want. I can now go here.
We did the video.
This is just before she says we did a second time. By selecting split clip again, we've now taken this interview into three pieces. The first section we want, the center section, content we don't want, and the third section, content we want again. By selecting the center section and pressing delete, it literally removes that section, and I can then move the end to just touch the end of the first clip. And when we play them together, we'll hear,
we spent some time in New York City. We did the Freedom Trail in Boston.
So now we've gone through and we've cleaned up this soundbite so that it makes more sense, so that it's easier to follow along, and so that your viewer isn't distracted by stumbles or things. She gets to the point much faster and much more quickly. I can select both of these files and move them to the beginning of my sequence. So at the very beginning of my movie,
this past summer,
so now we have this nice clean soundbite.